Ladies and gentlemen of the world, welcome back to my channel, but if you're new to my channel then welcome. My name is Zach Jones, although a lot of you probably know who I am. Now, a week or so ago I did this PowerPoint, but as I was going through some of my old PowerPoints I did notice I didn't get to talk about all of the facts I know, but also I didn't have very good lighting, and while that wouldn't bother anyone else, because me being autistic, it irked me a fair bit. So I've been redoing some old PowerPoint presentations of mine, and now I'm back to 15 predators of South America. The first animal I'm going to start with is the largest of the big cats found in the Americas. It is the jaguar. The jaguar is the largest of the big cats found in the Americas. It looks a little bit like a leopard, but it's bigger, it's stockier, and it's darker yellow with bigger spots, and it's more heavily built than a leopard. It lives mainly in the jungles and savannas of Central and South America and some parts of Mexico. But of course, it is also said to be probably the third most powerful big cat of all time, right after the lion and the tiger. Of course, I'll get to that a bit later. Jaguars feed on a wide range of prey. I mean, they mostly eat fish, monkeys, birds, peccary pigs, capybara, but of course their favourite food of all is tapirs. But also, jaguars are up there with tigers and fishing cats as being the big cats that are most comfortable in the water. I mean, it's very odd for people who think that cats don't like water, but as you can see there, jaguars love water. And it's where they go to keep cool during the heat of the day, and it's also where they can go and hunt. And they don't, not just fish, but also crocodiles, caimans, anacondas, snakes, all sorts of other large predators that inhabit the water. Of course, jaguars are solitary, like many members of the cat family, with the exceptions of mothers and their cubs, but a male and a female will only interact when they mate and produce offspring, or when two males are clashing over territory. Of course, a jaguar can actually cover an enormous range, about the size of a small country. And of course, jaguars are also very unusual in how they kill their prey. While many big cats tend to go for the throat or the back of the neck, the jaguar kills its prey very differently because it has the most powerful bite of any big cat, and that's all down to how it kills its prey. It kills its prey by biting right through the back of the skull and into the brain of its prey. And as you can see from its skull there, it has enormous canine teeth. They're probably about the length longer than my thumb. And how bulky the head is. I mean, it has enough force to power clean through the skull of a peccary or a tapir. In fact, the peccaries are a kind of wild pig that live in South and Central America, and they're one of the things that jaguars like to eat. And where their brain is very, very thick bone. So imagine the amount of force it would need to bite right through the skull and into the brain of a peccary. Although, think how much less force it would need to bite into a human skull. Then you can see how frightening that would be. Of course, jaguars, like all members of the cat family, are very difficult to find, and also they are endangered. I mean, one of the reasons why they're so hard to find is because they are a master of the shadows, which is an animal that specialises in not being seen. But also, it's down to the fact that they are rare. I mean, their habitat is being cut and burnt down to make way for plantations, urban areas, or even ranches. But also, that brings them into conflict with cattle ranchers, because quite often cattle ranchers take over a lot of the jaguar's land, and that means that, well, when the ranchers basically kill all their prey, the jaguars don't have any natural prey around, so they go for livestock like cattle. That, of course, angers the ranchers, and they go out and shoot the jaguars, and that's bringing them even closer to the brink. But I mean, there are people working to protect jaguars and trying to stop the conflicts, like with people putting bells on the cattle to make sure that the jaguars don't go near the cows and will keep their distance, but also trying to preserve the habitat they live in, and building breeding populations in captivity. And in fact, in the Pantanal, which is the largest wetland in all the world, right in Brazil, is actually said to be the best place to see a jaguar. But even so, it's not guaranteed you'll find one. Of course, this is the jaguar's range. And as you can see, they are found in some parts of Mexico, and as well as other parts of Central and South America. I mean, much of their historic range they're no longer in, but they are starting to make a comeback. The next animal is probably my favourite eagle, and also the largest of its kind. It is the harpy eagle. Now, the harpy eagle is the largest eagle on the planet. When I say the largest, I mean it can have a wingspan of just about 3 meters, so as long as the front door of your house, has talons that are longer and sharper than a grizzly bear's claws, and they can be very, very big. In fact, the largest female ever weighed was just over 9 kilos, which is about the same amount of weight as a sack of potatoes. Harpy eagles are known as flying wolves, but that's mainly down to what they eat. I mean, their favourite food are monkeys, sloths, and they will even hunt porcupines and reptiles and pretty much anything they can catch. And they prefer to live in untouched rainforests, far away from humans, and they usually nest in the highest tree in the canopy that actually sprouts right up from all the other trees, and so it's a spot where the harpies can see their prey, and they've got a good view over the areas that the monkeys and sloths and things they like to eat are moving, but they themselves are still well hidden. If the harpy eagle looks familiar to some of you, that's because it was actually the inspiration for Hogwarts headmaster Albus Dumbledore's phoenix, Fawkes, in Harry Potter. Of course, unfortunately, the harpy eagle is one of the most vulnerable and possibly endangered birds on the planet. And the main reason for that is that their habitat is being destroyed. Much of their ancient forest homes are being cut and burnt down to make way for plantations, towns, farms, or just to be for the wood to be used in like furniture or made into paper, and that's leaving less and less space for the harpies to go. And the more and more we cut down the forests, then the less and less eagles there are, and because people can spend their whole lives in those forests and never come across a harpy eagle. And in fact, because harpy eagles have only one chick every 2 years, it takes about 2 years for the youngster to get mature and ready to leave. And of course, harpy eagles can actually be really defensive of their territories. In fact, I actually have a friend who's been with a team in Central America who went to study the eagles there, and of course when they were climbing a tree, they had, as well as with all the climbing equipment, they also had to wear a riot helmet and a stab-proof vest, because I mean there's not many animals on the planet, let alone birds, that you have to wear riot kit to get close to, because the head climber was actually attacked by an angry female harpy, and when they have claws that are longer than a grizzly bear's claws, they could do you some serious damage. But even so, I mean, if you ever do go to South America to try and see harpy eagles, I mean, there's no guarantee that you will see them, because they are some of the rarest birds. I mean, you could spend your entire life in those forests and never come across one. Well, here is their range, as you can see. Now, the next animal I'm going to show you is the largest, heaviest and strongest snake, but it's also my favourite one. It is the green anaconda. The green anaconda lives in the jungles and wetlands of South America. And when I say it's the largest snake, I mean a fully grown female grows to be about 9 metres long and weigh 550 pounds, which is as long as a bus and heavier than me. And as you can see, they have a very distinctive green colour into them, and that's because of their camouflage. It gives them camouflage down in the water that are in the vegetation from their prey as well as potential predators. And the green anaconda is also probably the most legendary snake. In fact, I think it was actually the snake that J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter, based the basilisk, the king of serpents and the beast of Salazar Slytherins that lived in the Chamber of Secrets. But also, there's a tribe in Colombia in South America that have a unique relationship with the anaconda, because they don't see the anaconda as a threat. In fact, they actually believe the anaconda is their reincarnated ancestors, and that to handle an anaconda is the way to initiate yourself into their tribe. And they don't even harm the anaconda, which is incredible if you think about it. Of course, if you can see from an anaconda's skull, they have very sharp, pointed teeth. And of course, there's one row on the lower jaw, but they have 2 rows on the upper jaw. And they all point backwards towards the throat, and that means that once it's actually got a hold of something, there's simply no way it's letting go, and it can be funneled down into its throat. Even though it's not a venomous snake, a bite from one would still be extremely painful. And of course, the green anaconda doesn't use venom to kill its prey. It's a constrictor, which means it squeezes the life out of its prey. And a lot of what it eats are young crocodiles, large water birds, baby to adult capybara, and even a deer. And how they do it is they can lie submerged in water for hours, days, or even weeks or months on end. They're very, very well camouflaged, and they have the eyes and the nostrils on top of the head, so they can see you, but you can't see them. And as their prey gets too close, they lunge forward, grab a hold of it, and then wrap coils of their body around the animal, and then begin to squeeze. And of course, every time their prey breathes out, the anaconda clenches a little bit more, and every time it breathes out, it clenches more and more and more and more and more, until eventually there's either no lung space left and the animal suffocates, or even potentially they could even burst the internal organs of their prey, and then they will feed. In fact, like all snakes, they swallow their prey in one mouthful because they're unable to chew their food. So what they do is they can actually swell and even dislocate the jaw